And judges, will you be kind enough to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Good morning. Hope everybody's well. We're excited to be here with you today. I'm going to have my other fellow judges introduce themselves, and we'd love to hear your names and where you are from.
Hey everybody, my name is Thomas Mackey. I'm in the history department at the University of Louisville and with the law school here at the University of Louisville.
Hello, I'm Jay Barth. I'm the Chief Education Officer for the City of Little Rock and a former faculty member in American politics at Hendrix College, and we're really happy to see you today.
I think I neglected to say my name's Rita McCannon. I'm from Huntsville, Alabama. Hope you can understand me. Please tell us who you are and again, where you're from.
Hi, my name is Maria Crawford. I am a junior who attends Chicago Hope Academy.
Hello, my name is Crystal Ochoa. I am currently a junior as well at Chicago Hope Academy.
Hello, my name is Amanda Mraz. I am a senior also attending Chicago Hope Academy, representing the state of Illinois, and we are coached by our teacher, Mr. Zach Mislenka, and we are so excited to be testifying in front of you today.
Glad to have you. Glad to have you. We're going to ask question two. Question two. I'll read the question and then you can begin. Y'all keep breathing. Get your nerves under control. We'll get started. Question number two, quoting John Adams. There is nothing I dread so much as a division of the Republic into two great parties, each arranged under its leader and in opposition to each other. What issues led to the formation of the original political parties? To what extent have those issues persisted in American political parties? What are the advantages and disadvantages of a unified or divided government? And you may begin.
Political parties were formed due to the tension our framers had when establishing the Constitution in 1787. The first political parties formed were the Federalist and Anti-Federalist Party. Federalists wanted a centralized government and a loose interpretation of the Constitution, while the Anti-Federalists wanted independent states' rights, opposed to a centralized government, and a strict interpretation of the Constitution. Many argued that political parties divide our nation and we must agree in order to be united. In Federalist number 10, James Madison states, "Liberty is to faction what air is to fire, an aliment, without which it instantly expires. But it could not be a less folly to abolish liberty, which is essential to political life because it nourished faction, than it would be to wish the annihilation of air, which is essential to animal life, because it imparts to fire its destructive agency." Madison argues that taking the liberty of having opinions will cause division. As a result, Madison designed a system of government to protect the liberty of the people and limit the effects of political parties. Overall, political parties have been formed due to various perspectives of the Constitution, which is not necessarily bad. Political parties give us the ability to partner with candidates and choose points of view. It secures the core truth of the Declaration of Independence, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
The issues that initiated political parties in America have evolved since 1787. One issue that still exists today is the foundation of an economic vision for the United States. National banks were proposed by Alexander Hamilton in order to serve our nation's economic interests by creating credit. The enumerated powers under Article 1, Section 8 gives Congress the vague authority to create laws that are necessary and proper for the well-being of the nation. In a letter to George Washington from James Madison, Madison argued against national banks when he states, "It is an essential principle of the government that powers not delegated by the Constitution cannot be rightfully exercised. The misinterpretation of the necessary and proper clause creates controversy between loose and strict constitutional views. Federalists held loose constitutional views because they idolized the idea of a strong national government that helped bankers and the elite class succeed. They were in favor of implied constitutional powers. Today, these issues still exist in American politics. Our Republican Party favors lower tax rates and a strict interpretation of the Constitution, whereas our Democratic Party is in favor of taxing the rich and holding a loose interpretation of our Constitution.
There are several advantages and disadvantages for a unified and a divided government. The difference between a unified and a divided government is that in a unified government, the president and Congress are represented by the same political party. Conveniently, the United States is currently considered as a unified government due to both houses of Congress and the president being a part of a Democratic Party, resulting in quicker legislation. An advantage of a unified government is that it has created less confusion over the Congress process for average citizens. It allows the government to respond more effectively and swiftly in an emergency. Additionally, a disadvantage of a unified government is that it can encourage the abuse of power due to there being a lack of opposite opinions or disagreements from opposing parties. Unitary governments are also less expensive to run than a divided government due to it being a smaller form of government. Disadvantages of a unified government are that it is easier for local needs to be ignored and manipulation can occur. However, a divided government can artificially shape discussions for society. Another disadvantage to a divided government is the length it takes for legislation to pass. Checks and balances applies to politics in order to prevent one party from passing a one-sided bill. This can be seen as an advantage because that bill was passed with the intentions of the advancement of the country and the common good of its citizens in mind. Also, a divided government limits the amount of money that is being spent. A disadvantage of a divided government is the length and deliberation it takes for the government to respond to emergencies. However, there will always be pros and cons between a divided and a unified government due to the opposing political views that encompass the nation. Thank you. We are
That's
now
time.
for your questions.
Okay. Well, lots to talk about. This is one of those big topics that Americans have struggled with since the 18th century to today. How do we channel these big personalities and big controversies on emotional issues into appropriate channels so that we can eventually somehow get public policy coming out of them? Your presentation, as well as the question in a way, presents political parties in kind of a negative light. So that part of what I want to ask you about right now is what do political parties do that's positive? What is their current role? What do they allow to happen? In other words, then, why have they lasted? They must have some utility because they have lasted. So what is the positives here? Help me understand that better.
Some positives of political parties is that it allows our citizens to have equal representation for the rights that they believe in. It allows them to have more aspects instead of there being one central idea, as well as them having ways to express themselves and advocate for what they want, and by having a representative to do that for them.
It also allows for different point of views for everyone to be able to contribute to their community or their nation. And it also allows for everyone to be able to have an equal say, and as well as my colleague said, equal representation.
Yeah, what about the idea of accountability? How does that work into a positive about political parties? Help me out with that.
Well, because we have two political parties, if there's ever an issue and one side of the one political party is being too aggressive or just isn't thinking by defending the Constitution, that's when the other political party can come and step into place and give their argument, and it allows for debate and more opinions.
I agree with my colleague, but as well as in terms of having two separate political parties and holding one accountable, that's where checks and balances come into play, because it doesn't allow one political party to force their opinion without there being someone else opposing and finding another side to where that bill may not be as effective without it being efficient and in support of the common good for its citizens in our nation.
I'm hearing an assumption in y'all's language that there are always going to be two political parties. Do you think that assumption is right in the American context? Is there the openness towards multiple parties, and if so, would that be good or bad?
I believe that there might not always be two political parties, but in terms of today, the most advocate ones and most known are the Democrat and Republican Party. But as time go by, there has been a raising of more people becoming more involved in politics, and there being separate sides and not just the two that are most common today.
Yeah, I agree with my colleague, and Thomas Jefferson once stated that men by their constitutions are naturally divided into two parties, and I just believe that without political parties, it would more harm would be done. Therefore, political parties are important, and regardless if there's two or more, it allows for more representation.
Having the political parties fosters democracy? Do you think it frustrates democracy? Do you think being a member of a political party enables the democracy to function better?
I feel that there's many sides to that opinion, that question. It really depends on how you look at it, because political parties can do good in our country, but they can also do harm. Therefore, it's necessary to keep them controlled. Through political parties, we have passed lots of legislation. Recently with Biden, he passed the 1.9 trillion stimulus act, which will help our country recover. And I just believe that, yeah, political parties are good.
I agree with my colleague, but also want to add on that during the terms of like two separate political parties coming together for the convention, they were able to come together and find an idea to where they were able to come up with a constitution that represents and that all citizens can follow in order for everything to come into line, and there be some sign of guideline and rules put in place.
I agree with my colleagues. However, political parties can also sometimes cause division just because there are different point of views and not everyone may agree on the same one, which can lead to protests or riots and destruction of the city as well, which we have seen a lot recently. And but other than that, political parties also are able to cause citizens to have their own opinions, and it gives them the liberty to that as well.
Thinking ahead to your own kind of political and social change work in the future, do you see yourselves becoming an active within political parties, or do you see yourself using some other vehicle, an interest group, a protest movement, et cetera, to be a change agent? And why?
For me personally, I have a little bit of experience advocating for what I believe in, what is right. During my 8th grade year, I was a part of advocating for the closing of my middle school in terms of it being transitioned into a high school. So I've always felt the need to advocate and help out for what I believe is right. And I think having some form of politics being incorporated into that allows me to advocate for the things that I believe in. For example, with the Black Lives Matter movements that have been one of the headlines of protests and riots that has been presented. And I believe that it's important to strongly advocate and show a representation for what you believe in.
I agree with my colleague, and I also think that in this time and day, there are so many ways to be active in your community and through social media to spread awareness of the things that are going on. There's many outlets to do so through protesting as well. You can even sign petitions, and yeah, I believe that, yeah, in the years to come, our generation, it's important for our generation to be involved to make change, because we're the generation that matters right now.
I agree with my colleagues. There are ways to get involved that are non-violent but are still able to get the point across and be able to create a change. You can lead a peaceful protest. You can, as my colleague said, you can use social media as a way to get your point of views out there and to be able to support other people as well, all through non-violence.
We're about to run out of time. I'd like to ask you about 5 more questions, but since we have run out of time, I want to tell you how proud I am of all 3 of you. Not only have you worked very, very hard to get here today, but you've already figured out for yourselves how you want to become involved in the political landscape, and not just in the future, but right now. And I'm proud and impressed. And I appreciate the hard work that you all have put in to get here today, and I know your teacher is to be commended as well.
Yes, indeed. This is a tough question. These are ideas that Americans have struggled with since the 18th century to today. And state houses and Congresses, Supreme Court justices don't quite know what to make of it. So of course we ask high school students to solve these problems. And what we were looking for, of course, was, have you thought through the issues? Can you think on your feet on these tough questions? And you did a really nice job. So congratulations, well done.
Yeah, time really did seem to fly by in this session, which is a good thing because it shows that the conversation is flowing and y'all are really, we're first well prepared in the first portion, but then in the Q&A, we're really, grappling with some tough questions, and I thought in a very articulate and clear way. And so I appreciate so much y'all's commitment to this work. And really, really wish you all the best in this competition and in the years ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicely done, folks.
Thank you all.